one time, Lori and Charles Vallow were happily married. For Lori, Charles was her fourth husband, the one she had been with the longest. They were raising Lori's daughter, Tylee, and together they adopted little JJ. But by early 2019, things began to change. Lori's embrace of apocalyptic prophecies and self-proclaimed divinity cast a shadow over their marriage. She believed she was chosen to lead 144,000 souls in preparation for the Savior's imminent return. And she warned Charles that she would kill him if he impeded her sacred mission. Fearing for his life, Charles sought help, citing Lori's threats and erratic behavior. Lori accused Charles of being possessed by dark spirits, branding him a zombie. The culmination of this domestic turmoil arrived on July 11th, 2019, when Charles was shot and killed by Lori's brother, Alex Cox, who claimed self-defense. However, prosecutors now allege a sinister conspiracy, asserting that Lori and Alex orchestrated Charles' death to clear the path for her union with Chad Daybell, the doomsday prophet. Lori denies the charges and is now representing herself in this high-stakes murder trial. And after delivering a surprisingly good open, now it's time for her to cross-examine the witnesses against her. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And that's all the buzz, right? Has been Lori Daybell as her own attorney in that opening statement yesterday, impressing people and I think surprising people. One of the biggest moments was when she cried during that open. Now, lawyers, I'm a lawyer. I never cried during an opening statement. I never had any of my opponents cry during an opening statement. I don't know if in the number of years I've been at court TV that I've ever seen one of the attorneys in the case cry during the opening statement. I've seen them close to emotion sometimes in a closing argument. I have seen that. But what Lori was able to do, lawyers aren't able to do, which is try to impact this jury, bond with this jury as a criminal defendant, as an accused murderer. And I think it was effective. Now, that was part of what she did, and I thought that was for her, the best part of what she did, right? And starting to lay out the case. The other thing she did is she labeled Charles as a villain. And I have a feeling the way the evidence is going to flow here during the course of this case, of course, I know and you know a lot more about this case than the jury knows at this point, so they only know what they're going to hear inside the courtroom in Arizona. But Charles was far from a victim. Charles, even at the moments where she was threatening his life, was just trying to get her help. He was trying to get her put into a mental health facility so she could get that help, but it couldn't get it done. He knew something was wrong. He knew she wasn't the same person he had married, but he still loved her and wanted to keep things together to a certain extent. But it was becoming impossible. And it was becoming dangerous, but I don't think Charles realized just how dangerous it was. But the picture she's painting is that this is some domestic violence guy who is going to hit his stepdaughter with a baseball bat. As a professional baseball player, like a professional baseball player using a baseball bat to hit a child? Is the jury going to buy it? I don't know. Maybe they will. I'm not buying it. Not by a long shot. Now, it was good, her opening statement, and it was better than she did as Mrs. Texas. The Netflix series, Sins of Our Mother, I think showed some clips from the Mrs. Texas 2004 competition. I think she won Mrs. Mays County, Texas, and then went for the statewide competition. She didn't win it. So she did do better in her opening statement than she did in that particular beauty pageant, okay? So she did well, but she didn't place in the pageant. So obviously the performance yesterday, in light of expectations, clearly better than the Mrs. Texas in 2004. However, it was not as good as her performance on Wheel of Fortune in that same year, 2004, where she went home with $17,500 and $10,000 certificate for Kenneth Cole. And that was back in 2000, that's a lot of money. Like, she did well on Wheel of Fortune. Now, her opening statement was good, but it wasn't as good as winning at Wheel of Fortune. So that's day one, right? So now we're into the trial, and you're really into the meat of the trial, which is the testimony, the witnesses, the evidence being presented, and her job as her own criminal defense attorney is to try to minimize the impact of that evidence, undermine the credibility of witnesses through cross-examination, and make legal objections if and when the prosecution does something wrong. So how is she doing? And what's going on inside of that courtroom? Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft, who was inside the courtroom today and is joining us live tonight from Arizona. Kelly, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. What did you see inside that courtroom today?
Hi there, Vinny. Very different scene today inside the courtroom than yesterday. Of course, the big exciting day yesterday with the opening statements, especially from Lori when she was very emotional delivering that opening statement. Today, you could tell from viewing the jury that they have settled in. There was a lot of testimony today from law enforcement officials, first responders, and you could tell at times, not that they were losing interest, but their interest was not as high as it definitely was yesterday. Also, in regard to the courtroom itself, still a lot of people coming to listen to how this case is going. Not as packed as yesterday, because yesterday you couldn't even get a seat. So today, not as packed. Still a lot of people here, though, wanting to see how Lori is doing. She was making several objections today, saying some of the evidence presented by the state was cumulative. The judge had to help her with that one. He ended up allowing that evidence in. This is in regard to some of the crime scene photos, but she is making objections, Vinny, and conducting her cross-examination in a somewhat thorough way. At times she gets flustered because the judge or the prosecutor will object and say that a question is compound, for instance, and then she doesn't know where to go from there.
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is, like young lawyers, when you get into the courtroom for the first time, and me as a young prosecutor trying my first handful of cases, I didn't know what I was doing. You like learn on the fly. And these were not murder trials that they were giving me. She's got a capital murder trial that she's handling, so I can understand that. What's the vibe you get from her? Are you getting a vibe of someone who is like tuned in, someone who is play acting as a lawyer, like imitating what she has seen in the courtroom, or someone who seems like more connected to the role, like of almost like being a lawyer versus playing a lawyer? What's the vibe you're getting?
That's a really good question. You know, at times she comes back and she confers with her standby counsel just to get some better direction. But she walks up there confidently. One of the things that I notice, Vinny, is when she comes up to conduct her cross-examination, she always says the witness's name, or she'll say captain, right? Or sergeant, right? I want to make sure I have that right. And then she says his full name. So she starts off really strong, and then she starts going into her questions. So she has a list of questions, and then sometimes, like I mentioned, she does get flustered. But it does seem, from what she had argued, Vinny, in regard to wanting to represent herself, that she has sat through trials. She sat through her trial, meaning, and she knows this case better than anyone else. And so she is knowledgeable about her case and has made some solid objections and has gotten some solid questions out there on cross-examination.
It's really unbelievable, right? Because while the other trials that she sat through were not specifically about Charles, I mean, this whole saga is what it is. Like the evidence, there's a lot of intersecting of evidence and issues. So she does have that experience. All right, let's talk about today's witnesses. What can you tell us?
Okay, so the morning began, Vinnie, with the cross-examination of the paramedic who rendered aid to Charles Vallow. So she began with the cross-examination of him. Some body camera footage was played. He was a very solid witness, just describing what he was doing, performing CPR on Charles Vallow. That's been a big question in this case. Was CPR performed on Charles Vallow before he got there? Both the prosecutor asked about that. They asked that to the fire captain, and Daybell asked the fire captain about that as well. So we heard from Scott, who you were taking a look at. That's the paramedic. And then we also heard from Kent Keller. He was the fire captain. So we do have some bits of testimony from both of those gentlemen. Why don't we go ahead and play those now?
Is it possible that if there was a wound to the chest, that doing compressions on that could cause other damage?
I suppose it's possible, but ultimately it doesn't matter. If the heart isn't beating, it's what you got to do. It's the appropriate treatment.
So would a common person who doesn't know how to do CPR maybe hesitate about pushing on a bullet wound?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
But you wouldn't.
Can you repeat the question?
You wouldn't hesitate to push on the bullet wound if the heart was stopped?
No, I wouldn't.
And you would have to assess if the heart was stopped in order to do that?
Yes, you would check a pulse like we did. We would, use our equipment like we did.
Okay.
Had adequate CPR been given there, I would have expected more blood possibly on there and perhaps a pool of blood under him.
In this case, Captain Keller, do you know for a fact that CPR had not been given?
I do not know for a fact.
And do you know for a fact that CPR had been given?
I know for a fact that we gave CPR.
Prior to your coming in?
No.
So that was a pretty good question that she got out there on cross, because she wants to get information out there. You don't know, really, if for a fact that CPR was not administered on Charles Vallow before anyone from the fire department ended up getting there. Right now, we're just taking a look at that body camera footage of Alex Cox. You see him there sitting on the curb. Also today, they ended up showing the bat. So that's very important in this case, because what they're saying is what Lori said in her opening statement is that Charles Vallow grabbed the bat, that he was holding it up toward Tylee, Lori's daughter. She explained to the jurors that Tylee and Charles did not get along. They had a terrible relationship. They went to counseling. And so then this bat being held up from the witness, that was a pretty big moment inside the courtroom, because you could tell the jurors were really interested in just taking a look at that bat. Anytime you have a visual like that, that's easy to understand. The jurors, it always gets their attention, Vinnie.
I'm interested in this bat. The background of Charles Vallow, right? Professional baseball player. Like professional baseball. I don't know if he made the majors, but he played professional baseball. He's a big, strong guy. And I guess the defense that Lori laid out is that Charles was going to hit Tylee with the baseball bat.
Yes, that's exactly what she said in opening.
He would kill her. Like, he would kill her. A professional baseball player swinging a bat is going to kill that child.
Well, and maybe then that's why it was an effective opening. I was sitting in there, Vinnie, for that opening. The jurors were extremely interested in what she was saying. She began crying, talking about her daughter. So as a mother, you're trying to describe to the jurors that your husband is now going to be hitting your daughter with a baseball bat. That is what she told the jurors. She became emotional about it. And so anyone listening to that of course sounds extremely concerning.
Wow. Now, what do we know whose bat it is? And why the bat was in the house?
That's a great question. Well, yeah, no, they didn't really talk about that unless they did, and I missed it, Vinnie, but it appears that it was. So Lori was the one that was living in that house. Charles had rented that house for her. Lori described it. We rented that house, but Charles was not living in that house with her. So there was a baseball bat there, and she was concerned about Charles even ever coming to the house. She didn't want him to be coming to that house. She had only lived there a few weeks. So if it was Charles, then she would have had to bring it from something, or maybe she had it. But you know what? I'm going to check into that.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's Tylee's. It's a metal bat. It's not a wooden bat. Charles Vallow, professional baseball player, is only going to be using wood bats. So if it was his bat from back in the day, it would be a wooden bat. But it actually looked pretty new. Also, looking at it, it's fascinating. Okay, let's talk about what took place in the courtroom today. Apparently, some jury drama.
Vinny, so far in this case, we've had a little bit of jury drama. Yesterday, we had the one juror who was excused because he had told the judge that he had a letter from an employer who was expressing concern about his jury service. The judge questioned him about that. He then explained that it was going to be a financial hardship. He was excused. And then today, the prosecutor said that it was brought to her attention that one of the jurors was on his cell phone. She said that was concerning to her because that was the same juror, one of the same jurors, who submitted a question. And she wanted to make certain that that juror was not doing any additional research on this case. That juror ended up being questioned about that situation, and he acted as if he really didn't know too much as to what the judge was talking about, and just indicated that he must have been texting his daughter at that time, and the judge made it very clear to him that he cannot be on his cell phone.
Let me tell you, you start researching this case, that's a rabbit hole. I mean, this trial is going to be pared down. It's going to be much more focused than the whole Lori and Chad saga of what they did over the course of years. Yeah, you can read a few headlines, but to fully understand it, I mean, that's a big research project. Kelly Craft is at the courthouse.
Absolutely.
She's in Arizona. Thank you so much, Kelly. Great to see you tonight. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to bring our think tank. We're going to talk about Alex Cox. Did he perform CPR? As we take a look at the beautiful courthouse. It's a modern courthouse. It's historical in Court TV terms. There have been some big cases coming out of there in Maricopa County. We'll do all that, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, one of the world's most famous athletes once said, "There ain't no party like a Diddy party." So, what was really going on at those Diddy parties? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
We're here to try and understand the mindsets behind your actions in this case.
Interview with a Killer, a special 2-hour season premiere. Sunday, 8 Eastern and Pacific, only on Court TV.
Would you agree that Charles Vallow was dead before you entered the house?
Yes.
Based upon your training, your experience, what you observed, and what was done to Mr. Vallow, would you agree that it was highly unlikely that anyone had performed CPR on Charles Vallow prior to fire arriving?
Yes.
In this case, Captain Keller, do you know for a fact that CPR had not been given?
I do not know for a fact.
And do you know for a fact that CPR had been given?
I know for a fact that we gave CPR.
Prior to your coming in?
No.
So the issue of CPR, right? Important issue in a case where Lori Daybell is alleging that Alex Cox, her brother, killed Charles Vallow in self-defense. So after she shoots him, is she going to try to help him and have him survive this, what she called family tragedy? So what I want to play for you, this is really interesting, and it hasn't been played in court. It may not be played in court. I'm not sure. But Alex Cox called 911. But what you have to remember about this 911 call, it's 47 minutes after the shooting. It's not like the shooting happens that he calls 911, because there's going to be a discussion about CPR on this 911 call, which to me is significant. and really gets to the truth of what happened or what didn't happen here, straight from the horse's mouth, Alex Cox. But the key to the whole thing is when the 911 call is made, 47 minutes after the shooting. Let's take a listen.
You need police or paramedics?
Both. I'm in police and an ambulance.
What's the emergency there?
I got in a fight with my brother-in-law and I shot him in self-defense.
Just let me know if you see his chest going up and down. How old is he?
It's not moving. He's 60.
Okay, and are you wanting to start CPR?
No, I don't know how to do that.
I can walk you through it.
Okay.
And what I want you to do is you're going to put one hand in the center of his chest.
Yeah.
The other hand's going to go right on top of it.
Okay.
You're going to interlock your fingers, keeping your arms straight, and you're going to press down hard and fast into his chest. You're going to go 2 inches down and fairly quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Making sure his chest goes up between each compression. Where's the gun now?
It's in the other room.
So one question, all that is he play acting? Is he actually attempting to do the CPR? But to me, what is significant is that there's an admission by Alex Cox there that he doesn't know how to do it. So that means for 47 minutes he didn't do it, and maybe he did do it when prompted by the 911 operator, or maybe he didn't, based upon how Charles Vallow appeared when responders got there. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, former police lieutenant, trial attorney Rick King. Also with us, former homicide prosecutor, co-host of Prime Time Crime on YouTube, Jarrett Ferrantino is with us, and retired police commander, religious cult expert, and yeah, we need it for this case, right? Host of the podcast Profiling Evil and author of the book Deceived, Mike King is here as well. Great to see you. This is the Man Show tonight, just so you guys know. Special Man Show tonight. Rick, you obviously know CPR. You're a former police lieutenant. You know what you're supposed to do. Would it be obvious that someone who's been shot in the chest, that someone had attempted CPR on them?
I'm not sure how obvious it would be, but what you would see is there should be, if he's shot in the chest, there's going to be clearly blood on the hands of the person performing CPR. If the wound is bottom side or had its annexia, there might be excessive blood on the floor. So you might be able to tell. It's possible.
Let me ask you, Jared, how big of an issue is this in this case where Lori Daybell is making the argument that Charles Vallow's the villain, he's going after my brother had to defend himself, had to defend my daughter from this madman with a bat, and here we are, 47 minutes afterwards, maybe not he's attempting CPR. Does the lapse of time itself tell the story?
Sure it does, Vinny. It tells the story that they were getting their story together. Just listening to his voice on that phone call, he said, I shot my brother-in-law in self-defense. He was ready, he made an admission, and then he immediately provides the justification. It sounded rehearsed. He sounded like he took 40-plus minutes to get his story together and to relax. The no CPR just goes to the level of apathy. You know, if this thing happened like Cox said it happened and it was self-defense, there'd be panic. There'd be an effort to try to save his brother-in-law's life. It just goes to the level of apathy Lori and Alex had toward Charles and anybody who got in their way.
Yeah, the other part of this is that Lori is off to Burger King with the kids. Like, I understand JJ's young, you don't want to expose him to all of this, but my goodness, a man has just been shot. A man has just been shot twice, and we're going to the drive-thru. We got to get, he was promised the breakfast, so we got to get it done. Like, I can't comprehend that. But Mike King, I have you here. Let's get into, you want to talk about some zombies and possession? Let's do it. I'm going to play for you. This is Zulema Pastines. Who is that? Alex Cox's wife. Now, it's not his wife at the time that he shot Charles Vallow, but it was his wife, I believe, afterwards. The timing, it's relatively close in time, but I don't think they were married at this particular moment in time. But here she is talking about Tammy, who is Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell's wife, and also talking about Charles. So the two spouses of Lori and Chad. And again, this is the future spouse of Alex Cox.
They were saying was that she actually did pass away, but what happened was that she was taken over by an evil spirit, and then they were, that she had become a zombie, okay? So, in the back of my mind, here I am thinking, okay, they said the same thing about Charles, right? And then Charles ended up being shot.
How about that, Mike? It's everyone's getting shot once they become possessed, once they become zombies.
Yeah, if you're a cult leader, that's the cool part about Revelation, Vinny, is that you can come up with these ideas. And what they, in effect, did by doing something like this, if it's all true, they dehumanize the individual. They say, listen, this person's already gone. There's this zombie that's taken over their body and soul. And our job as this belief system that we all have is to get them onto their eternal life somehow. And that is to kill the body, which kills that spirit. And I think that's where the taping across the mouth and other things come in from some of the wacky things that I've read about this case. But most importantly, that's the thing that's happening, is it's dehumanizing the victim and separating them so that they're not committing a homicide. They're doing God's will, whatever this God is that they believe in, and they're getting rid of this person. And frankly, they're even kind of saviors to this person because they're saving that body and soul and getting them reunited in heaven. I mean, the whole thing is so frustrating when you look at it, and that people didn't see these red flags popping up along the way, especially after at least one. Could that have prevented Tammy's death?
Sure. Charles saw the red flags. Let's take a listen to Charles here speaking to police, talking about what Lori is saying about him, and he believes she's had a mental break, and she is threatening him and telling him that he's no longer there, that he's been taken over.
I've tried to support her as much as I could, but it's gotten really, really bad lately. She's had a break. She says, I'm Nick Schneider. I've taken over Charles's body, and Charles has been killed. I'm going to kill you. You're going to be murdered today or tomorrow.
You know, Rick, this is a tough spot for officers. Could you imagine being in the shoes of that officer and this guy who's very sane telling you that my wife has told me that I am no longer myself. I am now Ned Schneider. My body's been taken over, and then I'm going to be murdered today or tomorrow. That's a tough spot for police in all of this. It's not till months later that he's shot and killed, but there were lots of red flags here.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're telling those types of stories, even when it comes from, like, you're talking to a guy, and just as you said, he is telling you this far crazy story. And as a police officer, you know, your job is to document that information and take it in. However, as you're taking it in, you're thinking to yourself, is this guy nuts, or is the person he's talking about nuts? And you really don't know, but your job is to document that and make sure you save it for just this type of incident when somebody is actually killed.
All right, Think Tank staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take another listen to Lori's story about what happened and compare it to Tylee's story, because she spoke and told investigators what happened that day.
The evidence will show that on the morning of July 11th, that Tylee was asleep in her room and my brother Alex was asleep in the guest room. The evidence will show that when Charles entered the house, only JJ and I were awake and present. The evidence will show that after we put JJ in the rental car, that Charles came back into the residence to receive his phone, leaving JJ in the front seat of the rental car with the engine running. He was 7 years old.
Okay, what I want to do is go through Lori's story again, because she told the story in her opening statement. Let's take a close listen.
The evidence will show that Charles began to scream at me when I refused to hand him his phone. The evidence will show that Charles' screaming woke up Tylee and Alex. The evidence will show that Tylee came out of her room with a bat to protect me, her mother, from her stepfather, Charles Vallow. The evidence will show that Tylee and Charles fought over the bat, and that after a struggle over the bat, Tylee fell onto the ground, and Charles lifted up the bat to hit Tylee with the bat. The evidence will show that Alex then intervened to protect Tylee from being hit with the bat. He did not have a gun. He was not wearing a shirt. He was pulling up his jeans because he just woke up and came into the room where he heard the screaming. The evidence will show that Alex and Charles got into a physical struggle for the bat and fell onto the ground. The evidence will show that Tylee, who was on the ground, was lifted up by me and sent outside to get away from the struggle and to protect JJ, who was still in the running car, in the rental car in the driveway. The evidence will show that after the struggle on the ground between Charles and Alex, that Charles prevailed with the bat and began to come towards me with the bat as I ran away from him into the kitchen. The evidence will show that at some point while I was running away from Charles, who was chasing me with the bat, that Alex apparently retrieved his gun. The evidence will show that I ran outside to the children and that Alex shot Charles in self-defense. The evidence will show that Tylee and I had both run outside without shoes.
All right, our think tank still here. Rick King, Jarrett Ferrantino, and Mike King. Let's do this because that's Lori's story. And I want you all to listen closely now to Tylee tell her story about what happened that day to investigators.
So I woke up probably around like 7:50, I want to say, because I heard yelling from like right outside my door. And I don't even know what I heard, but I immediately like jumped up, and I have a baseball bat because when I was living at my uncle's by myself, I just wanted something to like feel safer, and I'm not old enough to get like pepper spray or anything, so I was like, okay, I'll get a baseball bat. I immediately just jumped up and I grabbed my baseball bat and I opened the door, and it was my stepdad, you know, outside the doorway, and then my uncle kind of in the doorway, and then I could hear my mom behind him. And he was just screaming at both of them, like, I don't even know what he was saying, because honestly I was just too, like wired, I guess. So I told him to take a few steps back. I was like, you're too close, you need to step back. And he was like, don't tell me what to do. And I just kind of just stood there, and then my uncle kind of moved out of the way, and then my mom kind of went past him and into, like, the big room.
Okay.
Where everything happened, and so I walked with them, and then I...
So they were more in the hallway?
Yeah, they were at, like, the end of the hallway, basically. And so my mom walked all the way around, and he kind of followed them, and I just kind of stood. My uncle was, like, right here, and then my stepdad right here, and then me and my mom were kind of right here. And I didn't do anything with the baseball bat. I kind of just held it there, and he was getting really close to my mom, so I kind of stuck it out, like, between them. And they were both just yelling, and he was like, if you hit me with that baseball bat, you're going to go to jail. And I just kind of stood there with the baseball bat, and I didn't really say anything.
When you said they were yelling, who was yelling?
It was mostly my stepdad.
Okay.
Well, he was really the only one, like, yelling. My mom was kind of, like, responding, but I honestly couldn't tell you what they were saying. It was kind of just, like, all jumbled up in my head. And so I just kind of stuck the baseball bat out there, and then he just grabbed it and tried to take it. So I held on to the end, and then eventually I fell, and he kind of took it into his hands like he was going to do something with it, and that's when...
So when you fell, he ended up with the bat?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I fell to the ground, and then my uncle kind of, like, I saw him take a step back, so my uncle, I think, grabbed him and kind of took him back so he couldn't, like, do anything.
You saw your stepdad, like, take a step back?
Take a step back, because he was really close to begin with, and then and so my mom said to go with JJ, and so I ran out the door, and then I kind of just stood there with My little brother, he was in the front seat of the car, and so I just kind of opened the door and just stood there. Eventually, my mom came out, and then we left from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened inside of the house? Has your mom kind of explained it all to you?
I just kind of asked her, because I heard a noise, which I know what it was now, but it sounded like, because I knew that the base when I was in there, it sounded like someone took it and hit it really hard against the floor.
Okay.
And so I was kind of like Al's okay, right? Because that's my uncle. So I just wanted to make sure that my stepdad didn't do anything to my uncle and stuff. And so she was like, no, Al's fine. We're just gonna take JJ to school. And I was like, okay. So I just got in the car, and then we went to Burger King because my little brother wanted breakfast, which was chicken fries for some reason.
Jared Ferrantino, did Lori murder her best witness?
She did. However, Vinny, no witness saw exactly what happened in those moments of the shooting. Lori, by her version of events, takes herself outside, and so does Tylee. So really, the only eyewitness was Alex Cox, who's also dead. So now all you're left with is Lori's version and Tylee's, which somewhat supports it. But Tylee never said her stepfather threatened to hit her with that bat or hit anybody with that bat. Tylee said he took the bat, he was holding it. She never said she felt threatened by him. And the rest of the story is told to her by Lori. That's what you have here.
Mike, what are your thoughts about what Tylee had to say? She's a teenager. I don't know what she was told or if she was coached at all, but what are your thoughts about what she told investigators here?
Yeah, I don't think the defense attorney, Lori, in this case, even watched the interviews again before she came up with this story. There are so many inconsistencies in this thing, Vinny, that trouble me. But most importantly, we get to this point where Tylee is saying, I went outside with JJ. My mom remained inside. That conflicts with Lori's testimony just a day ago when she says, I took Tylee and we ran outside. Then she also says something that really troubles me, and that is she says Alex comes in after Charles gets a hold of that bat, and Alex starts to wrestle with him. So that's what gives Tylee the opportunity to flee the house and go out with JJ alone. She doesn't say her mom comes with her. And then she says a while later, my mom comes out, which again conflicts with what Lori said a day ago in her opening statement. So those are two major things that I hope that the prosecution brings up. And then the big thing is if Alex is wrestling with Charles and this Major League Baseball player has a bat in his hand, somehow there must be a freeze in the warp system because Alex Cox is able to somehow get to his room, retrieve the firearm because there's no mention that he had a firearm up to this point, and makes it back in time to shoot and kill. But in this warp that's going on, Lori must somehow find a way to get out to the car because she says she's not inside when it happens, which all, if you look at the facts, is malarkey.
Rick King, Lori's not allowed to use the video of Tylee because even though it's an unavailable witness and it's a prior statement, she murdered the unavailable witness. So do you think there are enough inconsistencies that prosecutors would want to use it, or are they just going to stay away from it?
I think they'll just stay away from it. But here's my thing, and maybe I'm watching a different show. I don't know. Where's the evidence? Where's the testimony about some sort of confederacy or some sort of agreement or some sort of
I think there's some text messages that are going to come out, some text messages that may show some agreement here.
What I've heard is there's a text message, some sort of weird, nefarious sounding text message about a guy named Ned. I don't. To me, that doesn't carry the day. There's some.
Do you know who Ned is?
Conversation.
Do you know who Ned is?
I do know who. I've heard about this.
Ned is the guy who took over Charles's body. Ned's the one they need to take out.
Yeah, I get it. But I hear some testimony about crunching up pills and putting them in his protein shakes. I hear all that. What I don't hear is a confederacy, an agreement, some sort of conspiring, or some sort of agreement. I don't hear any of that. So when we get to that part, let me know, because the rest of this, we know who killed.
That's fair.
We know who killed Charles. Alex killed him.
Jared, are you concerned
Wake
here
me up when we get there.
that prosecutors won't be able to prove the meeting of the minds?
I'm not, because I think although you don't need the tacit agreement, you can infer the agreement from their conduct. Alex was Lori's hitman. If you look at the history of these two, she would send Alex Cox, her brother, out to do her bidding. And quite honestly, Lori stood to benefit from Charles getting killed. She, like the prosecution says, Lori Vallow wanted to become Lori Daybell. And that's the motive behind this case. And Alex would do whatever his sister asked him.
How does that character conduct come in? Conduct of her using Alex, how?
It comes in with their motive on custody. It comes in with the relationship between their families. If that character somehow comes in. If you look at the course of conduct between these individuals, Alex was at the ready, willing, and able to do whatever Lori wanted. And that's what happened here. It all goes hand in hand with the motive of the killing. She wanted to benefit herself. She used Alex to shoot Charles in this case. That's what happened. And that's what happened in the other killings as well, in using Alex.
Listen, I think that the government's case is what it is, and I get it. But I'm just saying, from a defense lawyer's perspective, I think that until I start hearing something about a conspiracy or about an agreement or about some confederacy, something, wake me up when we get there, because I haven't seen it.
Oh, we will. We'll wake you up. We're out of time, guys, unfortunately. We're on a tight schedule here on Closing Arguments. Big thank you to the King brothers, Rick King and Mike King. Maybe a singing group, I don't know. And Jarrett Ferrantino, great to see you as well. When we come back, I will reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, does Diddy have a chance to beat the federal charges and get released from custody? His trial is approaching, and tonight, we answer the question.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, coming up next, only on Court TV.
Doomsday Cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself
on charges of conspiring to murder her fourth husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. Oh, boy, there they are. Eric and Lyle, the Menendez brothers, speaking out. Yes, the double murderers, Eric and Lyle Menendez, addressed their chances for freedom in the new special TMZ presents the Menendez brothers, the prison interview. Let's take a look.
Hope for the future is really kind of a new thing for us, I think. I think Eric would probably agree with that. It's not something that we spend a lot of time on. I'm striving to be a better person every day, and I want to be a person that my family can be proud of.
The key to the whole thing is Governor Gavin Newsom. He holds their key to freedom. That's their only way out. That's the guy they need to be speaking with. Okay. Before we go, please take a look at your screens. We have a missing child who needs your help. This is Laniya Leanne Beck. She is missing from Houston, Texas since March 25th, just 16 years old. Please take a look at her pictures. If you see Laniya, make a call, make a difference. You can call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Harris County Sheriff's Office in Houston, Texas. That number's on your screen right now. Let's get Laniya to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.